we'll be using Flexbox for Flexbox for layouts. And what we're trying to achieve in this class is we want a website. Can you see? That would have a menu, or that would have a logo here. Logo. That we have home. Can you see? That we have about us. Then that would have contact.
Okay.
We'd also want a website that would have an hero section where we have a full width image.
What section? Sorry.
Hero section. Hero. Anything
Hero,
you call
okay.
it. We call it hero section. Full
Okay.
width. Full width. Then we want to have a services section here that would have service 1. Then that would have service 2. Then that would have service 3 and service 4, like that.
Yeah.
Then we'll stop there for now. Maybe we'll add footer if we're able to finish on time. So let us create the header here. So we have what we call semantics in HTML. We already have header, footer. They all come with HTML. It helps the browser to know that this is the header section, this is the main section, or this is the footer section. So I have created an header element. Is that clear?
Yes.
In my header element, I want to add an image tag. So to add an image or an image element, you use the img tag, right?
Yes.
And then the source for, let me copy one source I have here. This source here gives us random images every time we need it. Instead of putting a physical picture in my folder, I'm just linking to this URL that can generate a picture for me.
Okay.
There are 2 ways to get pictures in your HTML document. Either you put a physical picture on your server in a folder, or you link to the image on another server. So what we have done here is we are linking to pixon.photos. It is an image server that gives free random pictures every time you request for it.
Okay.
So now we have our logo. Let's assume this is our logo, right? Let's give it an alt property. You remember that every element has properties, or what we call attributes. So let's say company logo. So the alt, in case the picture is not correct. So for example, let me change this thing to, instead of Pixel, let me change it to Pixel. I know that there is no website called Pixel, so it's no longer showing the image. But instead of it just being broken, it's now showing company logo. So at least the person can know that, oh, company logo is meant to be here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, we also want to add one more thing inside this header section. Remember, the browser already knows that this is the header because we are using the semantic header tag. Why we advise that you use header tags like this, or semantic tags like this, is it makes it easy for your browser to separate your website into different segments for whoever wants to view it. It's not compulsory, but it's better. You could have used a div element here. Is that clear?
Okay.
So the next thing we want to do is an unordered list, a UL, right? And then we have list 1, we have home, list 2, we have about, list 3, we have contacts. Now we have developed the headers part of our website. I want you to remember that this is what we are trying to achieve: logo, home, about, contact. But because HTML by default will flow horizontally, that means all of them will stand on top of each other. And if it is not an inline element, it will take the entire width, even though it does not have capacity for the entire width. So
Okay.
instead of checking it here, let us view this page in the browser. Okay, so I want to close it here so that we can inspect. And remember that when you want to check your HTML page for errors, what do? You right click and you inspect, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now I right clicked and I inspected. I clicked on this cursor. Can you see this arrow cursor? It's used to select an element in the page. Now when I click
Okay.
on it and I check this header part, I check this, you'd see that this header is taking 100% width, and then this image is just taking its own width, but because the UL element is blocked,
Okay.
can you see the
Yeah.
UL element is blocked by default? Let me quickly confirm that, but I believe it's block. The UL element is a block element. You see that it's taking the entire width. Can you see? It's
Yes,
taking
sir.
the, if it were not to be blocked, if it were to be an inline element, it would have flowed to the right of this logo. So one of the things we do to achieve what we want to achieve is we now come up with using what we call flex layouts. So how do we use Flexbox, CSS Flexbox? That is the essence of today's class. Now let's go back to our CSS style sheet, and then we pick the parent. What's the parent here? The parent here is header.
Header.
Thank
Header.
you, header. And you know, to target the header element, you can either use an ID, a class, or several other selectors. But since it is the
Okay.
only header here, let's just use the element name
Header.
directly, right?
Okay. Yes, sir.
So I say header and I open curly braces, two curly braces. Now I want to put all the styles for header inside the two curly braces. Now one of the first things I will do,
Okay.
we would have an issue here, then I'll correct it, but let me leave it this way for now. One of the first things I'll do is the parent is what I give the display flex to. There's a property called display with a value called flex. When you give the parent a display value of flex, it will convert all the children to become flexible. All of them become inline.
Okay.
Can you see now?
Yes.
What have you observed? The
The
LI
the
element
listing has gone. Yeah, it's now at the right hand of the logo.
is now at the right hand of
It's
the logo. So
Yeah.
when you want to make the children, so the way we have done this now is we have put all this header into one parent, and we'll call the name of the
Okay.
parent what? Header.
Yeah.
So anytime you want to group two things and you want them to align on an horizontal row, what do? You give the parent a display of flex.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Now, there are several other flex properties that I'll be showing you in this class. The next property I want to show you is, now I have two elements side by side. I have the logo and I have the entire menu. But you observe that what I want to achieve is I want the logo to the extreme left, the entire menu to the extreme right. Is that true?
To the extreme right.
Yeah, that's what we
Yes,
want to
sir.
achieve. So we have another flex property called justify content. And please take notes, before that we also
Okay.
have another property. Let me show you that property first, called flex direction. If you do flex direction column, look at what happens. The image is on top, the what's it called, the menu item
The listing
is under it, because we
menu,
have said
okay.
the direction should be column. So the flex direction determines how you want all of them to align, but they will align themselves in a row, either row down, row horizontally, or row vertically. Yeah, you know, when it is row vertically, it is column. When it is rowed horizontally, it is a row. Or when they align
Row.
horizontally, it is row. When they align vertically, it is column. So you need to set your flex direction property, but by default, there are default properties that a browser will give your elements. One of the default
Yes,
properties that
yes.
a browser gives an element with display flex, a web browser, is display
Mm.
row. That's why I didn't add it, because by default it has already given it a flex direction of row. If it were to be a mobile app you are building, the what's it called, the OS to view a mobile app gives the flex direction column by default, because mobile phones are small and their screens flow down. but
Okay,
but you are
yeah.
not building a mobile app. But for a web app, you
Mm-mm.
would expect that your browser will give any element that has a display flex a default flex direction of row, which we have. The next property that is important is what we call justify content. These are properties you should know as long as you'll be working with flex. And if you're able to understand flex, you can manipulate any layout on your screen. The next one is justify content, and we have different options. We'll start with center, then I will show you others. Now you can see that when I set justify content center, all the elements inside that header tag or header element, all of them met at the center.
Mm.
Can you observe?
Yeah.
Can you
Yes, sir.
observe?
Yes, sir.
So if I inspect this header now, you can see the styles by the right here. When I
Yes.
clicked on the arrow icon and I clicked on it, you can see all the styles by the right, right?
Yes. Yes.
You can see display flex. So you can even manipulate your styles here without really going here to work. When you are satisfied with what you have, you can then come here to just ratify it. I don't know if it makes sense. For
No,
example,
no, no.
I can uncheck display flex. It will remove that style from it, as though I have removed it from here. Instead of removing and adding, testing different values for the properties, I can check them with my inspect console or inspect page just beside my main page. So I can still come back and
Sir, sorry,
re-add the
sir.
display flex. Okay.
Which page is this? This one now.
Inspect. This is the view page for your HTML document. And you remember how we viewed it? I
Okay.
right clicked on this and I opened with live server.
Yes.
Now, but this is
Yes.
what everybody will see. But if I want to see the underlying
Yes.
code for this page, web page, what do?
Okay.
I right click and I
Okay. Yes.
inspect.
Okay. 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 Okay.
And then when I
Okay.
inspected,
All right,
I
sir.
clicked on this cursor,
Yes.
and then to view the header. And as you can
Yes,
see
sir.
here, you would see that
Okay.
it's showing that this is the, can you see my page? Can you see that it's giving me a notice that this is
Yes,
the
sir.
header element, color, fonts, and everything, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
when I
sir.
clicked on it, I can see the styles and layouts, a lot of things here. Can you see?
Okay.
Can you see? These are the
Yes,
styles
sir.
I put in my style sheet.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so now what I did here was justify content center, right? I can change it from here to
Yes, yes.
to
Okay,
flex
okay.
end, so that I can test the different values that are available before I eventually
Mm,
go to write it. So
okay.
your browser, your
All right.
inspect would always give you options to choose from, so that it also helps you to learn easily without having to cram. So these are the different options
Okay.
available: flex end, flex start. So if you choose flex start, everybody will go to the left, and that is the default value that we had. If you choose flex end,
Yeah.
everybody to go to the extreme right. Can you see? If you choose
Yes, sir.
center, everybody moves to the center. Now take note, if you go to space around, everybody will have equal
Okay.
space in between them and equal space around
Mm,
them.
mm-hmm.
Then if you go to space between, everybody will have
Okay.
space between them, and then move to extreme left and extreme right. And this is what we want to
Yeah.
achieve.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll move here and then we'll change our our style for the header to space between.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
What happens if you start with the justify option before just the other, yes, no, yes, before the flex direction.
Okay, so let's
If you
do
had
that.
started with this
Let's do
justify,
that.
what happened?
Your browser would pick everything in an instant, so you don't know whether it came before or after.
Okay, okay,
It
okay,
would look for a flex direction property
okay,
to determine
okay,
if how it should justify.
okay, sir.
So
Okay,
nothing has
okay,
changed.
okay.
Yeah. So, and even if you do column, it will render so fast that you would not know.
Mm.
Okay, so the next thing I now want to do now, beautiful, we'll have this now, but take note that our menu, home, about, and contact are still flowing on top of
Yeah,
each other, and we want them beside each other. So let us
yeah.
go ahead. Now, who is meant to receive a display property of flex here? Is it the unordered list element or the li element?
Well, sorry, come again, sir.
Which of these two elements? You remember I said that it's the parent that receives a display property of flex, and then it
Yes,
affects the children.
yes.
So I have a ul tag and an li tag. Which of them is meant to receive a
The
display
UL,
property?
the
Thank
UL
you.
tag.
Thank you. So I come here and I say ul display flex. Now, what have you observed?
Yeah,
All of them are beside
yeah,
each.
by themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beside each other. Beautiful. So there is another property that we've not spoken about. That is the gap property in display. We have gap. And what gap will do is, in between each element, it will create a space. So we could say a gap of 10 pixels. So I've spoken about display, I've spoken about flex direction, I've spoken about justify content, and
Hello? Yes.
now I'm talking about gap. Can I go
Yes.
ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So take note that the space is increasing when I did a gap of 10 pixels. You can also come here to
Yes.
test and just click on the UL element. The styles for that particular element will show by the right. Can you see? And the gap that is 10, you can increase it to see how it will behave. Now I've increased it, I
Okay,
will
yeah.
increase it to 30 pixels, or 50 pixels, which looks fine. Right? So I come
Yes,
back
sir.
here and then I do a 50 pixels. Now the next thing I want to do is, my home, about, and contact does not have text decoration, right? Is it called text decoration? This dot here. So I'm trying to remove it from list style type. List style type. Okay, beautiful. So there is, for the list itself, that's the li element. I want to remove that dot beside it. And take note, I come here and then I say list style type.
No.
So if at any point you are stuck with what kind of property to use, you can always check online for how to remove the dot beside an li tag. It will give you an idea of what you're looking for. So list style type, and we're going to be using none. So what happens? The dot will disappear. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, sir.
So we've been able to complete our header. One thing we can do in the header with the header tag is to increase the margin, padding left and padding right. So we can do a padding left of 10 pixels, and then a padding right of 10 pixels too. Okay, then let's do a padding top. Should we do a padding top or margin top? A margin top of 20 pixels. Let's see. Okay, so when you click on inspect and you check, you'd see that is this brown, carton brown? That carton brown
Yes.
color is showing margin. The green is showing padding. So we have padding for the header, left and right, and then it has a margin on top. And when you check your right, you would see it here, padding of 10, margin of 20. but no border. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes,
Now,
sir.
if I had added a border, you would have seen that the browser actually saw every element here as a box. Let me show you what I mean. When I use the star selector, I am saying that it should select every element. That's the meaning of star. So I'm not saying header, I'm not saying UL, I'm not saying LI. I'm just using the star selector. The star means is a global selector saying every element would have this style. If I say border, that's for every element, and I say border is 1 pixel solid black. Now look at what happens to all of them. All of them would have borders around them. Can you see? But what you should take note now is everybody looks like a box. That's why I told you that your browser would see every element it is displaying as
That's
a
a box.
box.
Yeah.
And because it's seeing it as a box, it's easy for it to give it padding inside the box, margin outside the box, and then the border width itself to become thick
Yeah.
or thin. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've been able to achieve this, the header. The next thing we want to achieve is to now add an image. So we are done with the header section, we move to the main section, right?
Yes, sir.
And then probably would have a footer. Remember that I said these are standard tags that the browser would have loved to see on your page. They are semantic and they help to structure your documents appropriately. So we'd have the main page, and the main page, one of the things you expect is an hero section. So if you have an image tag here, the source like we had before, and then we can have a width. Take notes, we can have a width of 100%. This is very straightforward, right?
Yeah.
And then an height of let's say 200 pixels. Because it's too close to the header, can we give it a margin top?
Okay. Yes.
So this, let's give this image an ID. Let's call it hero. Right?
Yes, sir.
We'll come here and then we'll say hashtag hero. Remember that when you want to reference using the ID, you use the hashtag symbol or the pound symbol, I don't know. So we give it a margin top of what? 20 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so we've been able to create the hero section, right?
Yes, sir.
The next section we want to create is inside the main section is that title called services, right? So let's use the H1 tag. Is H1 the biggest or H6? H1.
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, please. What informs you? Is it also possible to have the CSS? Is it also possible to remove this hero from this line and make it keep it on its own? Like, then what informs you to put it on the same line, or you have another?
Tell me what you want me to do so that we can
standing
see.
on its own as if it's its own element, something like that.
I didn't get that. Can you please take it again?
Okay, you have this ID hero.
Yes.
You just added that so that we can
Identify the image element.
Yes. Okay. Can we remove this width and height from this single element, right, and make it stand as if they have their own elements? I don't know if I'm making
inside
the right
inside the CSS file.
Is this CSS? I think this is still HTML.
This is HTML. So you want them to be on another line?
Are we going to still have the same result?
Oh, I don't understand. You want it to be on another line?
Yes, what you just did now. Yes.
Yes. As long as it has an opening square bracket here and a closing square bracket here. So let me do what you have asked for now. It's just formatting. My code editor would keep putting it on the same line because it looks readable. I don't know if it doesn't look readable to you.
No,
So
it does.
yeah,
I just
so
want to. I just want to know.
no, it doesn't have any change. So that's what I've done here now. You still have the same
Okay.
result.
Okay.
Okay, so the next thing we want to achieve is to center this H1 element. And you know that by default, H1 elements are block.
Yes.
Yeah. So because they are block elements, there are two things we could do. Let's give this an ID of services title or services heading, right?
Okay.
And then I come here, I do a text align of center. Oh, sorry, because it's block, I can easily do a display of flex and then justify content center. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so because it's a block element, you can use the flex on it, and then you can align or center its content as you wish. So we have achieved this. The next thing we want to achieve is service 1, service 2, service 3, and service 4. And they have a fixed width of, what fixed width do they have? 200 pixels. Okay. So because they are together inside one, what's it called? So if they are this, I'll be giving them the same parent. Sorry, I have some people distracting me here. Let me call it ID services. So this is the wrapper for the 4 elements that I want to show you now. Then I have this
Okay.
div.
Div ID services.
Yes. So I have service 1, just like you would see on the normal websites, where they will say our services. You remember?
I know. Yes.
Yeah. Then we have service 2. Let me put it in a class of our services. So I'll put all of them in the same class, the 4 of them in the same class. Can you see that? So
Yes, sir.
we would have service 2, we'd have service 3, then we'd have service 4. Now, so that we can easily see our services well, we will give all of them a border. You know, I told you that the browser by default would give some elements a border, while it will not give some elements a border by default. If you need a border around the one that does not have a border by default, you would add it to your CSS style yourself. Is that clear? So we want
Yes.
to add a border around our div elements. The browser would always give an input element a border, but not a div element. So if you would like a border on a div element, you add it in your CSS style sheet. So I'm giving it a border of 1 pixels.
Yes.
Solid. I could have used a dashed, but I want solid for now. And you know what dashed means,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Red. So color red, border 1 pixel, solid red, and then I'm going to have this. You can see that all of them are taking their full width, but this is not what I want. I want them to take like 50% of the screen. Is that clear? So I give it a width
Yes.
of for now let's have a fixed width of 200 pixels, and then a fixed height of 100 pixels. Okay, we have something like this now.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it clear? So I've spoken about Flex since we've started this class, and trust me, we're still going to be using Flex here again. That means basically every layout you want to do on your website, you would require what? Flex. So what do you think we would do to achieve the same flexible property we've achieved in the header for this services section? Hello?
I hope this will last.
Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you now, sir.
Okay, so I said now we've created these 4 boxes for each of the service. Let me just copy something random from here so that it looks real. Service 1, piling. Oil and gas. Construction. Consultancy. Okay, so we now have something better here. Let's increase the height to 250 pixels. Okay, so this is what we have now, right? These are our services. This is better. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now we've used Flexbox for the header. We've used it for the services heading. We want to use it for the services themselves. Which of these elements do you think we're going to be giving a display property of Flex from here to here? Go
It
ahead.
will be the div services.
Thank you. Div with ID services.
Div ID services.
Beautiful. So we come here and then we'll do pound symbol hashtag services, right? And then we'll do a display of what? Flex. So this is the first thing that happens. Can you see?
Yes.
But this is still not what we're trying to achieve, because this is what I want you to observe. If I now increase the width of each of these divs, let's say I change it to 500. Are you with me?
Yes.
Let's say I change the width of these divs, our services divs, to 500. Can you see that it still fall on the same row?
Yes.
But the width is not increasing, and I wanted the width to increase.
So
I need to do something else. What I need to now do is to give it a flex wrap property.
Flex wrap, okay, yeah.
And then when I give it a flex wrap property, I am saying it should wrap. That means if my div is bigger than the width, it will move to the next row.
Yes. Something like text wrap.
Thank you. Similar to text wrap. Now, another thing we'd want to do is want to give it a gap. So we can come up here and give it a gap of 20 pixels. Can you see that?
Yes.
So it's now beginning to look like what we wanted to achieve.
Yes.
Then let's give the services themselves, that's our services, let's give them a padding of 10 pixels so that the items will not just be touching the border.
The border, yeah.
So we've been able to achieve the home, the hero section, the services. What you'll be doing for me now is do something similar to services for recent projects. So I expect you to have like instead of services now, you've already done services, now have recent projects. let me just do a new page. I expect you to now have recent projects, and then show maybe pictures of different projects for, and then have a footer section. In the footer, you can still have the logo, then you can have copyright, unjo, so anyone, 2023, and then maybe your services on top, services. So this time around you'll be having 3 sections here. Can you take notes? You have service 1, service 2, and then service 3. Take notes. You have 1 section, 2 section, and the 3rd section.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So when you are done with this, we would move on to responsiveness tomorrow. We don't have so much time. So what that means is, how would this page look on a mobile phone? How do we want it to look like on a desktop app, or on a
How
TV
do you
screen?
determine that?
Yeah, we'll check that in the next class.
God, okay, okay.